A 45-year-old millionaire sits desperately on a stone bench, his hands trembling as he stares at a photo of his daughter who died a year ago. James Morrison, pharmaceutical industry magnate, has just lost everything. His company is bankrupt after a faulty medication that killed dozens of children. His wife left him blaming him for their daughter's death, and now he lives alone in a world that hates him. But when a 7-year-old girl in a worn dress approaches and whispers, "I've seen you in my dreams," what happens next will defy all logic. Because this girl knows things no one should know, holds secrets that could change everything, and her presence will trigger a series of events that no one had foreseen. London, Hyde Park. Autumn leaves danced in the cold wind while James Morrison sat motionless on a stone bench, shoulders bent under the weight of guilt that was killing him from within. The man who was once considered the king of the British pharmaceutical industry, who had built a $2.5 billion empire and saved thousands of lives with his revolutionary medications, now looked like a ghost of himself. His Savile Row suit, worth £6,000, once a symbol of his success, was wrinkled and stained with tears. His dark hair, always perfectly styled for the covers of the Times and Financial Times, was now disheveled and dirty. His hands, the same hands that had signed contracts transforming modern medicine, trembled uncontrollably as they clutched a small, crumpled photo. The photo showed a 6-year-old girl with long blonde curls and bright blue eyes full of life. Sophie, his princess, his reason for living. Dead exactly 1 year ago from a side effect of NeuroShield, the childhood epilepsy medication his own company had produced and which she was taking experimentally. James Morrison, 45 years old, had founded Morrison Pharmaceuticals with the noble goal of saving lives. The cruel irony was that his own medication had killed his daughter and 27 other children before being withdrawn from the market. Cruel fate had ensured that the man who wanted to heal the world destroyed everything he loved. His life had imploded like a black hole. First came Sophie's death, which broke the heart of the entire family. Then the criminal and civil lawsuits that exhausted his finances and destroyed the reputation built over 20 years. Finally, the coup de grace. His wife Elizabeth had left him 3 months ago, screaming that it was his fault their child had died, that his ego and hunger for success had killed their daughter. Now James lived alone in an empty flat after selling the estate in the Cotswolds and the yacht to pay compensation to the victims' families. The media had crucified him, presenting him as an unscrupulous capitalist who had put profit before safety. He received death threats daily. He had become the most hated man in Britain. But the worst wasn't the lost money or destroyed reputation. The worst was the absolute emptiness he felt every morning upon waking, when for 1 second he forgot that Sophie was no longer there. It was that cruel moment when the brain still believed his daughter was in the next room, ready to be taken to school, before reality hit him like a punch to the stomach. James looked at his Patek Philippe watch that he had given himself for his 40th birthday. In 2 hours, the final hearing of the criminal trial would begin, where he would very likely be sentenced to 20 years in prison for multiple manslaughter. His lawyers had advised him to plead guilty to get a reduced sentence, but he had refused. Not because he believed himself innocent, but because he wanted the world to know that he too was a victim of what had happened. He opened his jacket and felt for the small bottle of pills he hid in the inner pocket. Cyanide. Enough to end the pain once and for all. He had decided, after the hearing, he would return to this park, where he had brought Sophie hundreds of times, sit on her favorite bench, and reunite with his daughter. The sun was setting behind the park trees, creating long shadows that seemed like dark fingers reaching out to him. The park was almost deserted, only a lone jogger and an elderly couple feeding pigeons. James prepared to get up when he heard light footsteps approaching. He turned and saw a girl of about 7 years old walking slowly towards him. She had long, slightly tousled brown hair, deep, intense green eyes, and wore a gray, worn, but clean dress. What immediately struck him was the way she looked at him, not with childish curiosity or fear, but with a kind of recognition, as if she had always known him. The girl stopped a few meters away from him and stared at him silently, which seemed to last an eternity. James suddenly felt uncomfortable under this piercing gaze that seemed to see directly into his tormented soul. The little girl came closer, her green eyes shining with a strange light. With a sweet but confident voice, she spoke words that would change the course of his life forever. She had seen James in her dreams. He was the sad man who cried for his golden-haired girl. James's blood froze in his veins. No one knew about Sophie in this park. No one knew he came here to cry for his daughter. How could this unknown girl know about Sophie? The girl introduced herself as Luna and sat with disarming naturalness next to him on the bench. With the brutal simplicity of childish innocence, she explained that James's girl, Sophie, visited her in dreams and had told her about him, saying that her daddy needed help. James stared at this mysterious girl who knew his daughter's name, feeling as if reality was slipping away beneath his feet. Luna, with a wisdom that didn't belong to a 7-year-old girl, explained that in dreams everything was possible, and that Sophie continued to speak to those she loved, even from heaven. Luna's revelations became increasingly specific and rationally inexplicable. She described with precision private memories of James and Sophie. When he built perfect houses with Lego as a child, when he founded his first company in a garage, the moment of Sophie's birth when he cried with joy. But above all, she described with painful accuracy the day of death, when James screamed so loudly in the hospital that all the staff heard him. Luna continued to reveal that Sophie wanted her father to know something crucial. It wasn't his fault. The medication was supposed to help her, and he couldn't know it would harm her. Sophie didn't blame him, on the contrary. She was angry because he was hurting himself instead of helping other children as he wanted to. The girl also proved she knew about James's suicide plan, revealing that Sophie had told her she had to stop him from doing something bad that night, something that would make her very sad. She explained being 7 years old but having an old soul, and that she always dreamed things that then really happened. Her mummy said it was a gift, even though it sometimes scared her. She pointed to a woman reading on another bench and explained to Luna that she had told her mummy she needed to speak to the sad man. Her mummy didn't understand her dreams, but let her be because she knew she never lied. For the first time in a year, James felt something other than pure pain fill the emptiness in his chest. It wasn't happiness. That was too far away, but it wasn't despair either. It was something that looked like hope. When he asked what he should do, Luna smiled with the same sweetness that James remembered in Sophie's eyes. She explained that Sophie had said he must stop thinking only about the pain and start thinking about how he could help. That there were other children who needed the best daddy in the world who makes medicines. James objected that he had killed his daughter, but Luna replied with deep wisdom that that was exactly why he could help other children, because now he knew what it meant to lose someone you love, and he would do everything to make sure it never happened again. With absolute conviction, Luna confirmed that Sophie spoke to her every night in dreams, and that she had told her that night to tell him that she still loved him, that she was proud to be his daughter, and that she wanted him to live to do good. Not for her, but for all the children he could still save. For the first time in a year, James Morrison wasn't crying from despair, but from something that resembled peace. The days following the encounter with Luna were the strangest in James's life. The mysterious girl had left an indelible trace in his tormented soul, and for the first time in a year, he had abandoned the idea of suicide. The cyanide pills were still in his pocket, but now they seemed to weigh like lead. The criminal hearing ended with a sentence of 12 years suspended, but James no longer cared. The only thing he could think about were Luna's words and the impossible feeling that Sophie was really trying to communicate with him. 3 days later, James found himself back in Hyde Park, sitting on the same bench. Luna appeared as if summoned by his thoughts and explained that she knew he would be there because Sophie had told her. The girl pulled out a notebook full of drawings that took James's breath away. They were perfect moments of his life with Sophie, depicted with impossible precision. When he asked how she had made these drawings, Luna explained that she saw them in dreams. Sophie showed her the most beautiful moments and wanted him to remember them, instead of the bad day. Luna revealed that she had never heard of James before they met. She explained that her grandmother always said that some people were born with one foot in this world and one in the other. Her grandmother, too, who died when Luna was 5, visited her in dreams and had told her that her mission was to help sad people find peace.
Enjoying the story? Give it a little like and don't forget to subscribe. Now then, let's carry on.
Then Luna pulled out a folded sheet from her pocket. Sophie had made her write a message with childish handwriting, but words that only a daughter could say to her father. She explained that she was fine in heaven, that it wasn't his fault, that the medicine was supposed to help her. But her body was different. She asked him to stop feeling guilty and start saving children again. James broke down emotionally. All the tears he had held back for a year exploded in liberating weeping. Luna took his hand and offered the presence he needed. Through the tears, James whispered that it really was her. It really was his Sophie. Luna confirmed with simplicity and added that Sophie had told her that in 3 days something important would happen that would change everything. 3 days later, James woke up with a strange feeling in his chest, as if something important was going to happen. He was preparing coffee when the phone rang. A desperate woman named Sarah Williams explained that her 7-year-old son, Oliver, was dying from a rare form of epilepsy. The doctors gave him a month to live. She had read James's studies on NeuroShield and knew it could be the only hope. James stiffened. The medication was dangerous. It had killed his daughter. But Sarah insisted that it had also saved 17 children with specific genetic profiles, and Oliver had exactly the same profile. The shocking revelation came when Sarah revealed how she had gotten his number. A girl with green eyes had approached her outside the hospital 3 days ago and given her a paper with James's number. The girl was called Luna. 2 hours later, James was at Great Ormond Street Hospital, sitting next to Oliver's bed, a boy who looked like a male version of Sophie. He had the same blonde curls, the same blue eyes, the same fragility that broke the heart. While James spoke with Oliver, Luna appeared in the doorway. Oliver recognized her as the girl who had told his mummy to call the doctor. Luna explained that Sophie had shown her Oliver in dreams and told her that saving him was the way to transform her death into something beautiful. When Sarah asked who Sophie was, Luna explained with simplicity that she was the doctor's daughter who was in heaven, but continued to help sick children. She had seen that Oliver would heal, but that James first had to learn to forgive himself. James finally understood the bigger plan. Sophie's death had led him to this moment, to Oliver, to Luna, to the possibility of transforming tragedy into hope. For the first time in a year, he felt that Sophie was finally smiling. The following 3 months were more intense than anything imaginable. James sold everything he had left to fund private research in a small laboratory on the outskirts of London. Sarah became his first volunteer, documenting every reaction of Oliver to the experimental treatment. But the real miracle was Luna. The girl appeared every day after school at the laboratory, drew in her notebooks while James worked, and shared Sophie's messages. Incredible! Each of her predictions came true. Important letters that arrived as predicted. Epileptic seizures that occurred exactly as announced. New families that appeared on predicted days. James had stopped looking for rational explanations. Luna was a bridge between worlds that allowed Sophie to continue her work. The turning point came when Professor Davies from Great Ormond Street visited the laboratory. After examining the data, he expressed his amazement at how James had managed to transform a deadly medication into a safe cure. James made a proposal that shocked the professor. He wanted to donate all his work to the hospital. The medication should be distributed free of charge, and any profit should go to a foundation for childhood epilepsy research. He explained having lost everything a year earlier because he was too focused on success. He wouldn't make the same mistake again. He wanted to create the Sophie Foundation, dedicated to pediatric medication safety. Luna approached and whispered that Sophie was proud of him. Finally, he had understood why he had to meet Oliver and her. Sophie couldn't speak to him directly because of the too strong pain. She needed someone who could transform death into life. James hugged Luna and felt for the first time that everything made sense. The pain had transformed into determination to do good. 2 years later, James was at the International Pediatric Neurology Congress in Edinburgh, presenting results that would revolutionize childhood epilepsy treatment. The modified NeuroShield had saved over 300 children without serious side effects. The Sophie Foundation had become Europe's most advanced research center for pediatric pharmaceutical safety. But the real miracle was the family that had formed around shared pain. Oliver, now 9 years old, was completely healed and had developed a passion for science. He had become the organization's little ambassador, telling his story with eloquence that amazed everyone. Sarah had quit her job to become family coordinator at the foundation, dedicating her life to helping other parents. And Luna had officially become the daughter that James didn't know he had always wanted. Her parents had gradually understood that she represented for James what she represented for him, a family chosen by the heart. Every evening, Luna asked if Sophie was happy. James answered by asking what she said in dreams, and Luna replied that Sophie was happy because he had finally learned that love never dies. It just transforms into something new. Their days had found a perfect rhythm. James saved children. Oliver grew strong and inspired others. Sarah helped other families, and Luna remained the magical bridge that allowed everyone to feel that Sophie was still present in their life. On this December evening, exactly 3 years after Sophie's death, James, Luna, Oliver, and Sarah sat on the same bench in Hyde Park, where it all began. They had brought fresh flowers and a small plaque that read, "For Sophie, who taught us that even in the deepest darkness, the brightest light can be born." While they arranged the flowers, Luna revealed what Sophie had told her the previous night. Her earthly work was finished. Now James had a new family to love and protect, and Sophie could finally rest in peace. When James asked if that meant she wouldn't see her in dreams anymore, Luna smiled with that ancient wisdom that never ceased to amaze him. She explained that she would always see her, but now the dreams would be of joy, not missions to accomplish. Sophie had said she could finally be a child again instead of an angel with work to do. Oliver came to James and hugged him tightly, thanking him for saving him and all the other children. James replied by thanking him and Sophie, who had shown them the way. Sarah wiped her eyes and reflected on how 3 years ago she thought God was cruel for giving her son this disease. Now she understood that maybe it had to happen that way so that James could transform his pain into hope for all of them. James looked at the 3 people who had become his new family, then raised his eyes to the starry sky where he knew Sophie was watching them. He whispered a thank you to his daughter for teaching him that love is stronger than death, that forgiveness is more powerful than guilt, and that sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters. A gentle breeze caressed his face, and for a moment, James could have sworn he heard his daughter's crystalline laughter in the wind. Luna took his hand and announced that Sophie said she loved him, and it was time to go home. When James asked where home was, Luna smiled and pointed to Oliver, Sarah, and then herself. Home was where there were people you love and who love you. Sophie had said that James now had a home as big as his heart. As they left the bench that evening, James knew Sophie was right. He had lost a daughter, but gained a family. He had lost a company, but found a mission. He had lost his old life, but discovered that sometimes second chances come, disguised as angels with green eyes and impossible dreams. And somewhere among the stars, a girl with golden curls smiled, knowing that her daddy had finally learned that love never ends. It just transforms into something even more beautiful. Did this story make you believe that even from the deepest tragedies, something wonderful can be born? Did it show you that love is truly stronger than death? If you too believe that every loss can transform into an opportunity to help others, that children can be angels in our lives, and that forgiveness is the key to transforming pain into hope. Like and share this video. Tell us in the comments, have you ever had an experience that seemed supernatural? Do you believe our deceased loved ones can still guide us? What loss in your life became a force to help others? Subscribe for more stories that celebrate the power of love, forgiveness, and hope that can be born even in the darkest moments. Like, comment, share. Because every redemption story reminds us that we are never alone, and that true love can perform miracles that defy any rational explanation.